Hey everybody, good morning. Good morning. It's spiritual healthcare time. It's day 63. Day 63. Good morning. Good morning everybody. It is good to see everyone. I hope you guys had a great evening yesterday. So good morning to all the spiritual healthcare people and everybody new that's just joining us or attending or just coming in for the first time. It's always good to see all of the new faces, all of the new people that are joining us every day, and all the amazing emails that are coming in as well. I absolutely love it. I've been getting lots of really, really great emails over the last little while, which we're going to talk about today. I got a great one yesterday from Jason, and we're going to address that this morning, as well as starting our journey into the 7 universal laws, which kind of make teaching the living work. Good morning, Sally. Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Patricia. It's good to see everybody. It is going to be a great number of days here. Tomorrow I'm going to be taking the day off, but I'm going to leave you guys with the beginning of what we're going to be doing for the next week. Today, with the beginning, as I say, of the new of sort of the universal laws that I want to kind of launch into with you guys, so that you have this foundation to begin moving forward, to understand how all this stuff is working. Good morning, Kaz. Good morning, Victoria. Nice to see you. It's so good to see everybody this morning. This is, I don't know what everybody's weather is doing out your way. I know you guys come in from all over the world, and it's so great to see. I love seeing where everybody's from, so put that in the chat, you guys, if you could. I love seeing where everybody's tuning in from. Of course, here it is cloudy and windy in Edmonton right now. It is cloudy and windy. Good morning, Des. Nice to see you. It's so good to see everybody just popping up. Yeah, I don't know, our weather lately, I'm telling you, it's supposed to get better. It's supposed to get better like the next day or so here, and then next week's supposed to be beautiful. So that's crazy. So good morning, Amanda from Yorkshire in the UK. Yeah, oh god, yeah, windy as usual in the in the UK. Seems to just, I don't know, it's like wind, all of that kind of stuff you guys get frequently. So I used to work with a few investigators from Scotland, and when they came here, they said that they preferred the really cold weather in the winter to the humidity and the cold in the UK, because they always said it was so much worse. Good morning, Will. He's 71 degrees and sunny in Nebraska. That's amazing. Oh, that's nice. And 90 in New Mexico. Holy crap! You guys are overcast in Texas. My God, it's amazing. I don't know. We're windy and cold right now. I don't know what happened to our good weather. I really don't. It's just nuts. I hope though this week we're supposed to be back into the 20 Celsius range, which is like the 70s for the Americans. So that'll be really, really nice, and be able to get back out going for walks and stuff like that, which is going to be really good, because yeah, this weather's no good. But yeah, so today, that's what I want to get into with you guys. I want to be able to start digging into and talking about the first of some of the 7 universal principles that start to govern things like teaching the living, and just in our world, and how this stuff starts to work and whatnot. So yeah, I think this is going to be awesome. I definitely move and live by a lot of these, because I find them to be absolutely 100% accurate and true in just so many areas. It's going to be really interesting. So Will says there's huge hailstones in Texas last night. Good Lord. Good Lord. We get them every once in a while here too, like these big golf ball size awful pieces of ice. It's like the universe is just chucking like ice balls at us just to see, just to watch how fast we can run or something. I don't know. So yeah, so I want to begin today with Jason's question that he sent in last night, because I think this is so key, and it's going to bring us into our new subject for the week here, being the universal laws. So Jason was asking, he says, I'm a believer in the paranormal. I've never witnessed anything that I can say was paranormal. is it healthy that I long for such an experience, or should I be thankful I'm free from that kind of experience? I love this question, and I wanted to bring it to spiritual healthcare because I think there's so many people right now that are looking and seeking out these experiences that are, mysterious and interesting, and that longing for that feeling of connection with non-physical. But I think one of the things that we have to really understand is that the paranormal and the idea of something being supernatural isn't really supernatural at all. It's one of these really natural occurrences. And I think the more that we are, we put it into a box of it being something unique and special and kind of outside of what our norm is, then we kind of hold ourselves apart from those experiences a little bit. Because if we think that they're rare, as we know, our thinking generates results, right? And when we think that they're rare and we think that they're going to come through these specific means, like seeing an apparition or something that's really out of the norm, then we end up kind of holding ourselves back from it because we're expecting it to be something that's not really tangible for us, or not really accessible to us in that way. So no, it's not unnatural at all for us to want these types of connections, especially right now when we're really looking and leaning towards more connection, not only with each other, but with what all that is, right? That non-physical part of the world and our environment. So I think it's a really healthy thing. And I think the more that we can start to nurture that and tune into that and be able to go inwards and be still, the more we're going to connect with that. So I don't think it's unhealthy at all. And what I would recommend to the people that are looking for this kind of experience, or looking to connect deeper in with that and receive that, is to, number one, remember that it is a receiving. It's not a looking or a hunting or a forcing. It really is a receiving. It's funny because the name EntitySeeker, when Steph and I first decided to put that together, it was the basis of a quote by Muji that was at the end of seeking all is consciousness, and that's how EntitySeeker got its name. And at the end of seeking all is consciousness. And so once you kind of eliminate that need to be, looking and noticing that it's missing, because we do that as well. We kind of notice that stuff's missing when we don't have it. And as soon as we can stop noticing that it's missing, we can start to tune into it being present in our environment, and we kind of let go, and then these experiences happen for us. It's funny because when we look at the statistics of people who've had paranormal experiences, most people are in this kind of mundane, doing day-to-day things. They're not out looking for paranormal phenomenon. They're just not. They have the want, they ask, they let go, and then they receive it. But the letting go for people is really hard. It's really hard because when you're missing something so much, and like so many of us right now are missing, friends and family, and it's hard to look around us and not notice. But the more that we can get into the vibration of that solution and start to focus on the solution rather than the problem, the faster that this stuff starts to show up in our world. So this is what's bringing me right into the stuff that I want to talk about today, which is, as I say, the 7 universal principles. And these actually were developed. I was very fortunate last year. I ended up becoming a partner and affiliate with an amazing institute called the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And it's run by an incredible guy by the name of Bob Proctor, and he has been studying for decades under a fellow by the name of Napoleon Hill, who wrote an incredible book called Think and Grow Rich. So he basically developed a bunch of just core understandings about how the universe works and how things are moved and manipulated, and how we have a role in that, like where we sort of, couple with and allow and receive that, source energy, God energy, whatever that is for you. And then we're able to kind of work within the laws of, as what we know as, universal laws, like gravity and stuff like that. But there's more. There's more than just things like gravity. There's more that are out there, and we miss it. And he was able to sort of pinpoint and identify a lot of these. And so many of these are what it literally makes things like teaching the living work. It makes our day-to-day experience happen, and whether or not we want to, participate with those laws or not is up to us. It's like whether or not we want to, move through life and ignore gravity. Well, if we ignore gravity, we're going to fall off a building and it's not going to end well. And these universal laws are very similar, where it's like, we don't have to participate, but man, I'd recommend it. Yeah, so Will says, can you please post a link to the poem? Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to read actually a poem by a fellow by the name of James Allen before we get started, because I think this is so key. So right around the time of Napoleon Hill, there was a number of other thinkers and philosophers that were moving in the same direction and beginning to understand this stuff. So Napoleon Hill, James Allen, Walt Whitman, Ralph Waldo Emerson, all of these people began, and even people like Carnegie. There's so many interesting individuals that really began to understand and move towards this understanding at the same time. So James Allen wrote a fantastic poem, a very famous poem called As a Man Thinketh. And it goes, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind, and evermore he takes. The tool of thought and shaping what he wills brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. And this poem, I think, is so fundamental to what we talk about and understand, and it's so fundamental to understanding the paranormal and psi activity as well, because when we understand that the mind really is our ruling state, whatever's going on in our mind is the ruling state, then we begin to understand what the hell is manifesting around us and why it's happening. So the first law that I want to get you guys running on today is called the law of thinking. Okay, the law of thinking. And we have to understand that there are laws to thought. There really are, just in the same sense that we've got law of relativity, law of gravity, we've got, all of these different universal principles. There really is a law of thinking. And when we understand that we can only attract what we think, that by changing that ruling state, then you change the results that you actually get and what you actually want. Mind really is the governing. It's the governing power, because once we can choose whether to tune into what it is that's non-physical. We can turn around and choose what it is to move into, depression or joy or happiness, whatever that is. We get to manage, that mind and what we do with it. So we have to think about it. So our daily physical acts, and here's where this gets very interesting. Our daily physical acts, right? When we get moving in the direction of whatever it is we're thinking, because we have a natural ability to just look where we want to go. And if we're looking in a direction that doesn't serve us, we go there anyway. It's funny because when you're driving along in a car, one of the first things that they teach you in driving school is, look where you want to go. And if you look at the cone in the middle of the road that you don't want to hit, guess what'll happen? You will drive right into that cone every single time. I have a friend named Andrew Younghusband, and he used to do a great show on Discovery Channel called Canada's Worst Driver. And he always used to say this religiously, and it drove him crazy. He would say, look where you want to go. Don't look at the thing that you want to avoid. And every single time, all of the bad drivers, they'd get in their car and they would drive right into a pole, or they'd drive right off the road, and because their attention was drawn always to the thing that they didn't want. And it wasn't because it wasn't real. I mean, it was real. Sometimes what they would do in the show is they'd be driving down the road and they would have things kind of jump out in front of the car, because they were trying to teach people how to look where they wanted to go and swerve around the object that they didn't want to hit. And so they would drive along and they'd have sort of this foam animal or something like that come out in front of the car, and they would have to train their brains to look where they wanted to go instead of at the glaring object that's now in front of their car. And they would have to learn to look at the gap where the solution was, right? Look at the gap where the entrance was, and they would have to swerve. And eventually they began to understand this, and they began to train their minds to be like, okay, wait a minute, that might be a glaring, awful, ugly thing, and I don't want to hit that thing. It doesn't mean it's not an imminent danger, but we have to be able to understand, to train our brains to look where the solution is and stop giving momentum to the thing that we're looking at that we don't want. want, because it's not about, you know, going blind to it. It's not about, you know, being ignorant of it. It's not about that at all. What it is about is being able to turn around and look and give momentum to the thing that you want, rather than steering yourself back and back and back to into the thing that you don't want, because eventually it'll get bigger and you'll hit it. So this is interesting, because when we think about our minds and we think about thought in general, and this law of thinking, we don't realize just how powerful that mind and what our thoughts really are and can do. And we see this in psychokinesis all the time. We see this in psi experiments all the time, with things like remote viewing and the ability that people have to move objects. We talked recently in some past spiritual healthcare classes about the idea of poltergeist activity, and how poltergeist activity tends to increase when we're under stress. So we know, and you know, if we talked about the Spanish researchers that were looking into the idea that, you know, we are able to move objects with some metallic consistencies when we are under stress. And when we start to understand that our minds create, we can start to move this. Our thought energy, get a load of this, travels at 186,000 miles per second. Miles per second. Okay, it's 900,000, or I should say 930,000 times faster than the sound of our voice. That's how fast a thought will travel. So think about this for a second, because if we have the momentum of thought, and it's going, and we're focusing on a subject, and we're focusing on what we don't want, and we're drilling down into this thing, because we think that if we focus on it enough, we're going to solve the problem. The problem with that is the idea that you're not solving the problem, you're focusing on the problem, which is creating a bigger problem. This is a really hard concept for people that are dealing with negative hauntings to really get, because just like the car going down the road, as we're going down that road, you know, the incident that happens in the house that is frightening, and you know, something happens that is terrifying, and it really shakes our foundation. Not being able to take our attention and take it and focus and push momentum in a way that is going to bring us more of what we want, it can be a really, really hard thing to do, and that thing is so glaring. So it becomes a tricky process, but it's so important. When we go at this stuff from the perspective of action first, what ends up happening is that those actions, they might change some things temporarily, but the problem is if we've got all of this stuff that's going on in our head, and it comes back to that whole principle, we will go where we're looking. We just will. So, you know, it's not a matter of going blind to it. It's not a matter of turning a blind eye or being ignorant to it. It's a matter of, what do you want to put that thought momentum into? Do you want the problem to persist, and you want to plug your attention into that and give that and speed that up? Or do we want to focus on the solution and the peace and that kind of thing and speed that up so that the rest of it falls into place? What do we want to do with that? And when we go into our day and start to get this, we start to really understand and start to see the difference, because we think it's just, oh, I'm just going to ignore it. It's not about ignoring it. You really are taking action against the problem when you turn to looking and thinking about the things that you really want. It's funny, because so many times I hear that, you know, people say, well, you know, we have to be positive, we can't be negative, and they're two different things. And that's a really big misnomer. It's not two different things. Prosperity and poverty, for instance, prosperity and poverty, it is the same thing. It's two sides of one thing. So when we can stop looking at this as two different issues and understand that we can't have one without the other, we would not know prosperity if we did not know if poverty didn't exist. So we have to begin to understand that we get to choose, we get to pivot our thoughts as to a direction that we want to go, which is the process that I want to give you guys today. So there is an amazing process by the wonderful Abraham Hicks that I want to introduce to you guys, and it's what they call the pivoting process. And it's once we understand the concept that every subject is basically two subjects, it's the same thing. then we can start to decide, make our decision, as we talked about before, make our decision, which side of that coin do you want to focus on? Which side? It's the same issue. It's the same issue. And issues don't really have, they don't really have any emotion behind them. They just are. We get to decide what our reaction response is, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or, whatever that is. We get to decide that. So when you're going through your day today and tomorrow, start looking at, if you've got these subjects that are coming up in front of you, because every subject is 2 subjects. Then you get to make that choice. It's a pivoting point. It's a pivoting point. You can tip either way as to how you want to see it. So this is one of those things that I think if we can move forward, with that understanding and really, really get our heads around that, you really do begin to see a difference. Everything in our world is in motion. Our thoughts are in motion. As I say, 186,000 miles per second, our thoughts will travel. It's hard to get your head around that. But those are the legit numbers. It's really incredible. Everything is in motion. Our walls are in motion. Even a dead body is in motion. That's how it ends up crumbling into nothing. It decays. It does it, it's doing its thing. Every single thing is in motion. If we look at the walls or our chair or the desk or whatever it is under a microscope, we're going to see those particles all shifting and moving. And so once we can get a beat on this and start to move on it, we begin to understand not only how our thinking really is going to determine the ruling state of our being moving forward, but it also determines the level of connection that we have with non-physical and the type of interactions that we end up getting with it. Are we turning around and are we tuning into that? Are we allowing that connection or are we not allowing that connection? Again, it's all the same thing. Every subject is 2 sides. So I really wanted to as I delve into that this week, so that we can start to unpack this. And there are 7 of these amazing universal laws that I'm going to take you guys through. I am taking the day off tomorrow, but we will be doing and continuing this on Monday, so that you guys can kind of absorb this one, take it through your Sunday, practice it, get used to it, and then on Monday we're going to keep going. So the book that I wanted to read you guys from today is Mr. Napoleon Hill. Mr. Napoleon Hill's super famous book, Think and Grow Rich. This is the special edition. Yeah, this is the special edition one. And as you can see, it's like it's got a few tabs in it. It's got a few. But I want to read you guys a segment from this because, even as we can look back on some of these texts and really begin to delve into where some of this thought process started. It wasn't created at this point because it's always been there. But it was really beginning to come into experience in the 1850s, 1860s, into the early 1900s. And you begin to start to see it mold. And it's really incredible. So I want to read you guys this little segment from here because this is pretty cool. A peculiar thing about this secret is that those who once acquire it and use it find themselves literally swept on to success, but with little effort, and they never again submit to failure. If you doubt this, study the names of those who have used it. Wherever they have been mentioned, check their records for yourself and be convinced. There is no such thing as something for nothing. The secret to which I refer cannot be had without a price, although the price is far less than its value. It cannot be had at any price by those who are not intentionally searching for it. It cannot be given away. It cannot be purchased for money, for the reason that it comes in 2 parts. One part is already in possession of those who are ready for it. The secret serves equally well all who are ready for it. Education has nothing to do with it. Long before I was born, the secret had found its way to the possession of Thomas A. Edison, and he used it so intelligently that he became the world's leading inventor, although he had but 3 months of schooling. How do I know these things? You should have the answer before you finish, and you may find it in the very first chapter or on the last page. So I love this little segment from this book because it really does depend on your alignment. What he's saying about, whether you find it on the first page or the last page, is because when you get the understanding, it's going to be in your time. It's going to hit you. Sometimes it's immediately. Sometimes we kind of click and we're just, and we realize what's up. It just settles into our being one day. Depending, it doesn't matter. It depends on what it is for you. So don't push yourself. If you need more practice with it, then take more time and practice with it. And the funny thing about this stuff, and what I've learned about teaching the living and what my clients have talked about for years, is the fact that it does come at the right time for you. And you might hear something new in this in a year. You might rewatch Spiritual Healthcare in a year and hear this in a completely different way, and it's going to hit you in a new fashion. It's really interesting, and because we really do only hear what we're ready to receive. And if we're not ready to receive it, if we're not ready to tune into it and plug into it, it bounces right off of us. And that's why if you turn around and you go out there and you're kind of trying to preach stuff to the world, you end up getting a pushback, because some people, it's not that they maybe don't want the information. It might be that they literally are on such a different frequency, they literally cannot hear you, which is why it doesn't serve to be convincing people. If they just can't hear it. In the same way that if you find the right frequency with a glass, like a noise, and you put a glass in there and the glass shatters, well, you got to find that frequency, right? And it's the same thing with this. The right people will hear it. The other people, they don't hear it, and that's okay, because they're not in that space. So it's not about convincing. So I'm going to post a really great video today. It's an older video of Mr. Bob Proctor talking about some of this stuff, so you guys can check it out. As I said, I'm so grateful to be a part of what they do with their programs, because it's such a foundation for people to start moving in the right direction, and it's awesome, because as I say, all of these universal laws, man, it's how this stuff functions. It's how teaching the living functions, and it determines our connection with non-physical. When we start to understand these principles, it determines our receiving place. So it's really cool. So that being said, I have to send you guys off with the right vibration, the right intention. We've got an amazing week ahead of us, going through all of this stuff, and all of it will be, available, let's say, again in the Spiritual Healthcare Masterclass later on this year. So everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve their individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only need to gently, eventually, release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. And there's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately connected to my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe. And I can do that easily. Everybody take a breath. I love it. I love it, you guys. I love it. As I say, tomorrow I'm going to be taking the day off from Spiritual Healthcare to get the rest of the week moving. But we will be back on Monday with the second universal law, and start to move forward with these understandings and these new principles, so that you guys can really get a beat on this stuff, and get why teaching the living works, and why the paranormal kind of does what it does, and how this stuff functions, how to create these experiences in your world, so that you're doing it, with the deliberately, and with deliberation, and with the intention that you set forward. And Laura says, thank you for these classes. Wonderful little rays of sunshine. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. And both to you and Richard for everything that you guys are doing right now. My thoughts are with you guys and everybody in the US right now. Yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for all you're doing, and thank Richard for me as well for all he's doing on the front lines of this. It's amazing. Anyway, thank you guys again so much. I will see you guys on Monday for spiritual healthcare and the second universal law, which we're going to dig into. It's going to be really good. So if you guys are missing past classes, youtube.com/EntitySeeker or EntitySeeker.ca. All of them. They're all on there. All the spiritual healthcare classes. Have an amazing day, you guys, and I will talk to you on Monday. Bye.